All right, great. Let's get going. So thanks again, teachers. Thanks for joining the Whiteboard.chat basics webinar. We have a good number of participants from the US and a few from outside the US as well. So welcome everyone. It's really exciting to do these webinars. We are currently doing them once a month, but as we get into the summer vacation period, we may or may not do as many webinars purely based upon demand. So if you do see the need to ask questions and clarify and get some clarifications, or you want us to even schedule some special sessions for your teachers in your school, do let us know. We can do things on demand as well. So let's get going. Whiteboard.chat actually, let me just quickly talk about the agenda first. So we do plan to cover the basic features of Whiteboard.chat today. We will show you how you could prepare for a classroom to start with, some of the basics of how to get going, how to manage some of the boards that you prepare for your running your classroom sessions. How would the teacher, how would the students' experience be when the teacher invites the students to their classroom? So we'll cover all of that. And I do have my colleague Dhaval, who's also on the call. And you can please, if you could please type in your questions on the Zoom chat window. I will pause periodically and have Dhaval read out those questions, and then we can answer those questions. So you don't have to wait all the way to the end for the question and answer. You can type them in, and we can try to answer them within the context of what we are covering as well. Of course, we do plan to stay a little bit longer than the hour. So we normally stop the webinar about the top of the hour, so at 5 p.m. Pacific, and we could wait a little bit beyond that, say about 20 minutes beyond that or so, where we can take questions specific from teachers, whatever they may have run into. So we could certainly do that. Right. So let's talk a little bit about Whiteboard.chat and where it fits into this virtual class ecosystem. So on the left-hand side, what we have here is all the learning management systems that you already are very familiar with, like Canvas, Google Classroom, Schoology, and now incrementally you're seeing Microsoft Teams also being used in some form or fashion as an LMS, and they're adding features to do LMS within Teams as well. So certainly they can help you orchestrate your entire semester and get your classrooms organized. And then we have on the bottom here conferencing solutions, which help you do uh, uh, basically video sharing and also an audio uh, chat mechanism with your students. These products also include Whiteboard in some sense, but they are more about collaborating and having all your participants generally working on a bare board. You can share certain visual aspects of, say, for example, design and things like that. So a little bit more for the corporate world. Now, these tools are now beginning to add a few things that are more suitable for students and for education as well. However, what they are all seem to be lacking, or at least over the last year, what we've seen is that they miss out on a lot of the observability, engagement, and communication which is required to run a classroom effectively. So we started Whiteboard.chat last year when we experienced the need for our own children. So Whiteboard.chat is run by a company called Epiphany. So we are all employees of Epiphany, and uh, it's a small company based out of San Jose, California. We were working on an enterprise product, and we saw the need that for our own children to have a better classroom experience. That's where we used some of our technology and then came up with Whiteboard.chat. And where we excel in that, this is basically the marquee feature for Whiteboard.chat, is it allows teachers to prepare lessons and share them with students in just such a way that the teacher is able to observe what the students are doing. So on the right hand side, you see the teacher has prepared an assignment here on Whiteboard.chat, and then invited the students to join in. The students get a copy of the material that that the teacher has prepared, and can real time see, the students can also real time see the teacher as the teacher annotates the board. and they can work on their own copy of the board. And the really amazing thing is that the teacher is then able to also get a bird's eye view and see all the students in the classroom, see how they are making progress on the assignments, and give them real time feedback. So that observability has really increased engagement in a huge way. That's the feedback we got from all the teachers. And once the teachers realized that this is such a powerful way to engage your students, that's when we started to get a huge amount of adoption from our teachers. And we got even more feedback saying that, if you could add this feature, I can teach this subject more effectively. If you could add another feature, I could handle math education a lot more easily. If you could add these manipulatives, it makes teaching this particular topic much easier. So as we got feedback from teachers, we kept adding and improving Whiteboard.chat over the past year, and uh, it has grown in leaps and bounds over the past year or so. We literally have 60 to 70,000 users who use it on almost on a daily basis in terms of the number of unique users joining in. And we've crossed it. So this screenshot was from a couple of months ago, actually, I believe. So we've easily crossed more than 750,000 users now, and we keep increasing every day. As we get into the summer months now, of course, we do expect a little bit of usage to taper off, but we are expecting that the strong word of mouth connections that we've built with teachers, that we expect them to come back and prepare lessons and use the summer time to even get prepared for the next year. So yeah, we do continue to expect to improve certain features, and expect the sort of engagement to also develop with new teachers as we move along. And another thing that we've noticed is that while we are entering into the summer months in the US for the academic season, the some other remaining parts of the world, they're probably going to get started with their academic year soon. So we might see a good ramp up from there as well. As I said before, we've really developed the product based on feedbacks from teachers. So we love all the feedback from teachers. We expect to improve the product and differentiate ourselves purely based on this feedback. So please do send us any advice, information, comments, suggestions for improvements that we can use to improve Whiteboard.chat. You can write to us at feedback@whiteboard.chat. We are extremely engaged on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. And so Dhaval, thanks for posting the links on the Zoom chat window. So teachers, if you want to just quickly capture that. So we've got a very vibrant community of teachers using Facebook. It's called Teachers Using Whiteboard.chat. So it's grown a lot over the past year, and we help out teachers in terms of any problems that they face. In fact, now we've seen that there are so many teachers who have become experts in using Whiteboard.chat that they readily respond and give suggestions to new users, and even try to work around certain issues if you run into something, and so like that. And yeah, so I see a question there saying that will we be posting a recording of this webinar? Absolutely, we will be. Let me just double confirm that our recording is in progress. Yes, it is. So yes, we will be posting that webinar on our YouTube channel, and we will send out a link as well. All right, so let's jump into whiteboard.chat. So as a teacher, when you go to whiteboard.chat, this is all the information that you need. That's the URL. And we do not require you to download any software as such. You can use this on Windows laptops, on Windows tablets, on Surface tablets, MacBooks, iPads, MacBook Airs, if you'd like, Chromebooks, Chromebooks from Google, or Chromebooks developed by other manufacturers. So we've got users who are using a variety of hardware to access Whiteboard.chat. All you need to do is open your browser and go to Whiteboard.chat, and you would see this screen. Uh, just to cover some specific things that certain schools and school districts require. So our privacy and terms of use are available at the links down here on the bottom left. Our feedback URL, our email is also here on the bottom right. Now, typically what we expect teachers to do when you start off is, of course, you would end up on this particular page, and then you click on start drawing. You see three options here: start teaching, start collaborating, and manage boards. So start collaborating essentially brings up a whiteboard, which is more of a classic whiteboard where all the participants will be able to see a shared view of the same board. They can all use different types of tools to annotate it, and all the sharing is real time. There's no such differentiation between a teacher or a student within a collaborating board. So what's more interesting is the start teaching mode, which is what we're going to explore today. So it's a way to create, assign, and live teach individual student boards. And then as we go into the start teaching mode, I will then show you a little bit later in the webinar what the manage boards is all about as well. And I will also touch upon the classroom code in a little bit. All right. So initially you would start by just clicking on start teaching, and that brings up a fresh board for the teacher. Now, when you join Whiteboard.chat initially as a teacher, you may see a different, a randomly picked name by the service. So our system does not require you to necessarily log in or create an account. You can use Whiteboard.chat completely anonymously as a teacher and as a student. There are benefits to, of course, creating an account, but you can certainly use it anonymously. So if you join anonymously, you will see a randomly picked name here, and you can click this and you can change, right, the name here. So if I say, if I want to just change it to Miss Teacher, for example, then I can just change it that way. And so this is the name that would appear on your student board when they see your cursor and so on. So I'll show you that in a little bit. And a quick guide around the screen itself. So what we have here on the left hand side is our main toolbar. So you'll access a bunch of tools uh, and features that you would need to manage your class from the left hand side toolbar. So if you click the top button here, which is called the hamburger menu, it opens up, and so you can see a text-based description of the menu options as well. Now, do note that based upon your browser size, if you have a slightly shorter browser size, then you may not see all the options, but you can scroll up and down, and that way you can just to make sure that you're not missing any tools. You're probably just not seeing them all at one shot. Okay. Then what we have here on the top is the indication of what type of board you're currently seeing. So this is an instructor board. For a student, you'll see student boards. And then you can click out here and give a name to your board. So let me just call this webinar board 27, let's say, right? And just type in enter, and that's the name that you said. And then there's a few different tools here which you will go over in a little bit. Let me pause here for just a second to see if there's any questions so far.
There is one question about keyboard shortcuts. If we have it for draw, select, and move plus select.
Yes, so we have been requested to add those keyboard shortcuts, and there are shortcuts for a few things. So, for example, if I just start typing here, if you just say start typing, then it automatically starts to enter text there. So, you don't specifically need a shortcut itself. And so for accessibility reasons, we will be adding those shortcuts soon, and we will definitely make them, announce them when they are available for you. It's just that sometimes on iPads and things like that, you really don't have shortcuts. You just click on the actual buttons here, on the icons here, and then move into the different mode.
Is the canvas infinite?
Okay.
Meaning the board
Yes.
is
So the canvas is not infinite because purely because it makes the system a little bit more tricky to manage in terms of having the ability to share with students, because the students may be using a variety of devices. And so for it to perform the way we would like it to perform, we chose not to go with an infinite canvas to start with. And but you definitely have a huge number of pages. I believe close to 95 to 100 pages that you can add to within a particular whiteboard itself. Okay. And so just to make sure that people understand what the infinite canvas is, that there's a finite area in which you can scroll. So as you can see the scroll bar at the bottom here, if I scroll left and right with using my two fingers, There's only a limited amount of space on the horizontal axis that I can scroll, and on the vertical as well. Okay. And I will talk a little bit about how you can set different sizes of your whiteboard as well in a little bit. Okay. All right, so let me start first by showing some of the most basic things that you would need to know to start a classroom. So once you've joined the whiteboard, now you've named it, given it a board, and now typically what teachers do is that they have some material which they're already used to teaching, and they may have scanned copies or a PDF of those that teaching material. So what you can do to upload that teaching material is as follows. um, so there's icon here called upload file. If I click on that, I can have a choice to upload from a computer or from a Google Drive. Let me pick from a computer. So it opens up your folder on your local computer, and now you can see that there's a few different files that I have here. I'm just going to pick a file which I use quite frequently, called the place value chart. It's a mathematics assignment, and I open that. And what Whiteboard.chat does is it takes this PDF file and then embeds it into your whiteboard itself. Now, this is a multi-page PDF, so it has 3 pages, and this is page number 1. And the bottom left here, you can see this is a page number. So if you click on the right arrow, it goes to page number 2. So the second page of the PDF automatically got inserted on page number 2 of whiteboard, and then there's a page number 3 as well. Okay. And in all honesty, this is probably one of the most basic ways in which a teacher can prepare an assignment. And now let's say that the teacher just wants to invite a student, and or a set of students, and then have them work on the assignment. So what the teacher would do is go to the invite button on the top right. There are different ways in which you can invite students to your classroom. So if they have iPads, they can just scan this code. So for example, I think one of the questions that we had in the webinar registration was, how do I use Zoom and Whiteboard at the same time? So this is exactly a great example of the webinar itself is a great example of how you would go about doing it. That you would share, you could either share your teacher's view directly on Zoom itself, and then have them join the board from here, or you could be sharing even a different material on the Zoom share, and have students join the whiteboard classroom. So when the students join the whiteboard classroom, I'll show you how it appears for them. So a common way for this teacher to have students join is also by sharing this link. It's you copy the invite by just clicking on this button. Now you can share this link with your students either by just pasting it, sending an email to them, or by pasting it over any chat window. You can also paste it into an LMS. So for example, if you pre-prepare your boards over the weekend, you can take these links and paste them into your LMS. And as the students join, they get to see the link, they click on it, and they join your board. You can also join using your Google Classroom. So you can click on this, and it'll bring up a Google Classroom dialog that then automatically helps you add the link to your Google Classroom, or you can do it using Microsoft Teams as well. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this link with Dhawal on a separate chat window that I have with him. And I'm going to also join the same classroom as a student. So we'll have a couple of different students going on here. So I copied the link here. I'm going to open an incognito window. So this is a separate incognito window. I'm going to paste this link. So this is what the student would see. So the student gets requested to enter your name, and now the students, you could request your students to, of course, use some sort of a alias or a nickname, but this is not so much of a login, right? So let's say if I just call this name as a student, right, and I set the name. Now, as a teacher, we often get asked the question, as a teacher, how do I prevent students from just entering random names? So there's a way in which students can make sure that teachers can make sure that students are forced to log in before joining. And so for that, let me switch back to the teacher board here. So this is the instructor board. If the teacher goes to the settings icon here, this is the gear icon. And there's a few different tools here which we'll go over in a little bit. But one of the controls that you can use is that only logged in users can join the board. So if you enable that, then the students, when they paste the join link, right? So before entering this board, instead of asking instead of the service just asking the name, the students are actually required to log in. Now they can log in using a Whiteboard.chat account itself, or they can log in using a Google account. So if your school already provides students Google accounts, they can use that particular account to log in. So by using that, it restricts the names that show up for the on the students board, so that the teachers know exactly who's joining in. So again, like, let me switch over to the student board. So this is the student board. And as you can see, the student already gets to see the assignment that the teacher has uploaded here. The student can also move across pages and see the same pages that are already a part of the assignment. So I'm going to try and shift this just a little bit here so that you get to see a shared view. All right, so now the student can just work on the assignment. So now students can select various tools here. So let's say the student wants to work on this assignment and says, okay, I'm going to type in the digits here. So 3, 4, 5, and 2. And the student is continuing to work on this assignment. Now, as a teacher, if I go out here, I can see that I can see a few different members have joined my board. So one is the teacher itself, which is the M. D, I believe, should be Dhawal, and then S is a student. So if I click on this, I can see the list of teachers who are on my board. You can have co-teachers as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But also see the students that have joined the board. So this is one way for me to see who has joined my board. And now the teacher can also click on this grid view to see all the students that are joining. So right now I just have the teacher board. This is Dhawal's board, and this is my student. And I can go and click on this board and say, okay, Dhawal's doing a great job. So I can join the board. And now you can see that the teacher's view, it says student board, and it shows who the student name here as well. I say, okay, Dhawal's doing a great job. I can go to this section called the manipulative section, and this is in the search mode. Let me find. So there are different types of categories for manipulatives here. So we'll go over those in a little bit. But let's say that the teacher just wants to give Dhawal a reward, right? And then the teacher says, awesome. So teacher can give different types of stickers to students. And let's say I'm done with giving stickers to Dhawal, and this teacher can go back here, and the teacher can go back to grid view, and let's say we also give similar reward to my student. So I can join. And if I switch over to my student board, as you can see, these stickers have already shown up right there. So this is pretty much real time. Now since the teacher is on the student board, the teacher can also see the student directly trying to work on the assignment here as well. So as you can see, the updates are real time. So that's another huge advantage that Whiteboard.chat gives you, because you can see how students are engaged and how they work in making progress through their board. So let me pause for a few more questions.
Yes. So one question is, the students are not able to see the page properly if they are using a smartphone.
I see. So smartphones, what we do recommend is that you should definitely have students use the smartphones in landscape mode. So that makes it a little bit, a lot more usable. Another feature that you can use, that teachers can use, is that if you go to settings, there is a way for the teacher to pick different board sizes. So for, of course, smartphones, the smaller the board size you use, the better it is, because what this does for you. So for example, if I pick the iPad size, the teacher can gets a thin outline here indicating what exactly is the area that the student is going to see with this iPad size. So whenever you're preparing your material, you're not going beyond that, and then that would just not work very well with a smartphone as well. We are working on a few different UI updates, which we hope to get to maybe in the next couple of weeks or so, where we it would make it a lot more easier for anyone to use Whiteboard.chat on mobile devices as well. So certainly look for updates from us regarding that.
There is another question on if the students can annotate the text. I think that you already
Yes.
demonstrated, but there was a follow-up question in the same one. Can you make question mark, exclamation point, tick marks? I suppose those are the
Yes.
ones that you can
So
use, and also from a special keyboard, if you can just show that. Yeah,
sure. So let me show a few different controls here. So as a student or even as a teacher, you can increase or decrease your pen thickness from here. So let's say I want to as a student I want to write here, for example. Let's say, right. So I want to now I can write like increase my pen thickness. So let me say I just want to annotate here. I can do that. I can make the pen little thinner. So I can say before back here, right? So if you're using iPads or a touch screen, it's easier to write using that. That's certainly much more easy to do. You can pick different text sizes also by using this text control. You can change the font. So by default we just use a Chewy font, but you can use a few different fonts out here as well. There's one question, I believe, on how can you resize text boxes. So let me show
correct.
that as well. Let me go on to the next page so it's easier. So for example, if I add some text here, let me pick a slightly smaller font so it'll be easier to see. Okay. And so if you hover over this bottom right corner of this text field, that's where you can resize it. So for example, if I had started off with a smaller size, this sentence, and then I can increase this here. So that's how you would resize the text boxes, right? You also have the option of using a solid pen or a dashed line. So for example, if I pick the dash pen, then you can get dashed lines like this. You can change the opacity. So let me pick a slightly different color so it's easier to see. Maybe here, this one. So if I pick maybe a thicker line and I change the and make a highlighter out of it, so you can do this, and that would help me use it as a highlighter. And maybe I should disable the dashed line, so that will make it look better. So you can use that as a highlighter as well. So there's quite a few tools down here, and we already went over how you can change the name. You can also click on the pen color here to pick a color. Another way for younger kids to pick colors is by clicking on the manipulatives, and that opens up a color picker, which is a lot more easier to pick different colors, right? So it's just a lot easier on a touch screen device as well. Yeah,
Um,
any other
uh,
questions?
yes, so related to the text box, can you also show that we have an option of using enter inside the text box, which is a config option. So there is a comment about
Yeah.
that people may lose the white spaces and the two sentences get mixed up. I think that
Okay.
happens. Yeah, if you can just show that.
Okay, let me, yeah, let me understand that a little bit better. So let's see, okay, if I type in the text, okay, so this is line one, and then I can type in enter to have line two, enter line three, and so on. So that's
Correct. And
certainly good, right?
yeah, and then if you click out, so this stays this way because you
Correct.
may have but sometimes what happens is they may become one line. So that was a question.
I see.
They lose out the enter that has been pressed inside the text box, which is actually a config option that we
Yes.
have.
So I believe if you click on here, the settings of the board. So again, let me go up here. So this is the settings. So there's an enable enter in text box. So if you running into the problem where you're losing the ability to make new lines, then just enable that and that would work for you. Okay. So hope that
There
answers.
was one last question about transcription for the chat window. I guess that we can cover it when we
Yeah.
talk about the chat.
Right, and also we'll try and cover some of the advanced features later. Let's, yeah, some of the things that I think we're getting questions on are covered certainly in the advanced topics. So we will try and get to them as we get later into the webinar, or we can, address them after the main content is done as well. All
Yes,
right,
sure.
so we've covered the main topics of how you would prepare an assignment using just a PDF upload, how a teacher can use a grid view to look at the various students. Oh, that's awesome. I already have a student joined in as well as one of the teachers here. So here's a quick way, I think, to quickly tell you how the teacher may have joined in. So if you see this code up here, so as a student, if so let me open up another quick window here. And if I go to whiteboard.chat, there's a way to enter a classroom code. So if you enter that classroom code here and join the class, then that's another way for your students to join in. So that's one useful feature. If some class student joins a little bit late, or they don't know the class link, they can just look at this particular code and then join it that way. Now, in the grid view, so one thing real quick to mention here is that by default, you have three students on per row out here, and then you get three rows in terms of the number of students that you can see on one board or in one view. But you can customize that by clicking on the grid options down here. And so you can change the boards per row to be, say, 5 if you want, if you have a huge number of students in your classroom, or if you want to see a bigger view, a larger view, then you can pick one or two boards that gives you a much larger view of each student's board as well. Okay, there are a few different additional options here, which in terms of sorting and things like that, you can do. We can try and cover them in a little bit. All right, so let me
There
go
was
back.
a there was just one comment. Can
Sure.
student have a teacher view?
No, the students cannot see the teacher view. So let me compare that, and that's a good question, very pertinent one here. So this is the student view, and as you can see, the student does not have this grid view option here. So the bottom panel is missing for the students. They do have the options to change pages, of course, because you may want different students to work on different pages and different parts of the assignment, and that's certainly allowed. But the students definitely don't have the same controls as teachers. Uh, Another thing to keep in mind is that students cannot see other students' boards. So, for example, this student, if I was to just join as this student, that this student cannot really see what Dhawal is working on right now. So across students, there's no crosstalk per se, and they cannot write on each other's boards either. Um, yeah, any other questions though?
No, we can go ahead.
Okay, great.
There are few, but I will cover them later.
Sure, sure, we can cover them when the topics come up. All right, so let's quickly go over some of the tools that now you have available for preparing the class boards, right? So some of the most important things that you would find are under the tools section here. So if you click on this, now I'm going to, as I go over the tools area, it's kind of a little painful for me to go back and forth to the tool section and find this wrench icon, right? So what I can do over here is I can open up the hamburger menu. I can favorite this particular option for myself and it goes up here. So now that makes it easier for me to find this particular tool menu option here. So now I'm going to click on that. Now you have the ability to draw lines. You can draw arrows, right? And all of this, of course, can also be done with a dashed line. So for example, if I do that, I can get a dashed arrow, right? Of course, whatever color you pick, that color applies there. You can select and crop items. So for example, if you uploaded a PDF and you want to use only a particular part of this PDF, then I can say, okay, I want to only copy this part, and then I can paste that. So that's another option that you have. So in case there are parts of the PDF that you don't want to use for your lesson, you're so welcome to upload the whole thing and then just take a snippet of what you need. You have the ability to add rich text. So this is there's definitely a text box input that you can just get by typing in text. But if you need to get additional formatting options, you can use a rich text editor. So that gives you the options of, using different font sizes. You can use bold, underline, superscript, or strike through. You can have different text sizes and so on, right? So then once you close that, so that text sits embedded in the board there. And of course you can select it. So if you select this, and then you can edit text again, so that's another option you have there. So if you have assignments where students are required to write a lot more information, write lots of paragraphs, then this probably works out a lot much more convenient. Then you have the infinite cloner. So here's a quick way for me to show you the infinite cloner. So let me jump down to the shapes option. So let's say I want to prepare some game tokens for my students, right? So I can go to shapes, I can click on circle, I can start drawing a circle. So now this is a little bit tricky. So I'm going to, if I want a perfect circle, I can press shift and then move this so I get a perfect circle. So let me do that. And then I can select and fill it with a different color. Let's say I pick green. Okay. And so I've created a one token, and I want this token to be movable by my students. So I can again select this particular token, and I can say enable students to move this token. So when students see this particular uh, page, so let me go back to page number 1. So this is the token that the student has, and the student are able to move it. But I want to prepare many tokens for the students. So let's say I have prepared one. I can go to tools. So this is again the teacher view. I can say infinite cloner. So now this infinite cloner just helps me make copies of these tokens. So I can create as many tokens as I want. And then if I switch back to the student view, now the student is able to move these tokens around. So if you create like a game board or things like that, then this becomes a very easy way for the students to work on the tokens themselves and so on. Right? So that's a good use of infinite cloner. Let me switch to a different page so it's a little easier for me to work with here. Okay. Then you have the ability to also add a link. So this option, so you select it, and of course, normally you're expected to click on the board after you pick that option, so that it knows exactly where to place the link. And now when the add link option itself gives you the variety of ways in which you can use the link. So one is that you could get a button that takes you to a different website. You can also get a button that takes you to a different page in a book, or there are a few more options where you can do auto correction or run a code blocks. But let's say that I just want to create a button that takes the students to Google. All right, so then I just say that. If I say save, so they get a button that takes them to Google. So if as a student, if I jump over to page number 4, I get to see that button, and I should be able to, there it is, I've scrolled over this side. And if I click on that, it just opens up that link for me. So that's one option you have. Then you also can add a YouTube video. So for example, I can click on that, pick a YouTube. I've already looked up a YouTube link here. So for example, let's say I'll do that. I can search for maybe Sesame Street. All right, so let's say I want to pick this, and I can pick up the link for this. So let me just skip this ad. So when you embed the YouTube links, of course, it'll skip the ads automatically for you. And so I'm going to pick this URL, and I paste it in the YouTube video link here. Now, another really useful thing about the YouTube panel is that you can specify the start and the end time. So let's say you want the students to only look at a part of the video between that starts at 40 seconds and ends at 100 seconds. So you can specify the start and end time and embed that in. Right, and when the students look at the videos, it'll automatically start at 40 seconds. So uh, that's where it started at 40 itself, right? So that's a very convenient way to also include other educational content. Then you have the ability to embed a dice in here. So let me move this button out of the way. infinite cloner mode. Um, so you can add dice to create like game activities. You can add up to 3 dice, and you can even make these programmable. So for example, uh, let me get at this. Okay. So you can even program the values that you can get on this dice. So if you click on this menu option here, you can say, I want to add, I want to create these patterns. So if there's a particular type of assignment that you want to do, then you can program these, and then when you roll that, you would automatically get those values in there. Now, one thing to note, the way this dice works is that to remove this dice, you would need to go back to the tools, and then the same option becomes hide dice, and you click on that to actually get rid of it. So let me pause there. I think there are quite a few questions.
Yes, so I'm going to just start. There are a couple of questions about the PDF. So the PDF is usually left aligned. There is a
Mhm.
question, can it be center aligned? So students can write on both sides of the board.
Yes. So what you could do in that case is, so this is third page of my PDF. So I can just go to move and resize tool, and I can just shift this here. And so you get both the left and right sides to write on.
There is a navigation related question. Is it only using the side and bottom bar, or is there a hand or pan tool to grab and drag?
So yeah, yes, in some sense, if you're on an iPad or any touchscreen device, if you use two fingers, you can use a two-finger scroll to pan around. And of course, you can use two fingers on a Mac as well to pan around. You can certainly drag the scroll bars as well. So that's another reason why we have the scroll bars showing up, is so that you can drag them as well.
Can the participants' board be removed later?
Uh, that's yes, that is also possible. Let me just show you how you can do that. I was going to cover that a little bit later, but let me just demonstrate that right now itself. So let's say that so there's an option where I can go to the actions. This is a three-dot menu, as we call it. So there are quite a few things down here we haven't looked at, but the question is about the open class board. So if you open these class boards, you see another list of participants. Now, this is a sort of a shortcut way for doing a few different things. One is, let's say I want to look at page number 2 of Dhaval's board. So I can select the page number 2, and I can click on Dhaval's name here. And this automatically takes me to page number 2 of this particular student's board. And I can quickly skim over and go to the different students using using this panel. You can now from here itself, what I can also do is, let's say I want to kick out my student. So I can click here, and I can say delete board. So if I do that, that automatically removes that particular student from the classroom. So if the student now does any activity, they would essentially get kicked out. So they have been deleted, and they'll be redirected to the home page. So they essentially get ejected out of the classroom.
There was another question about sometimes there is a lag when typing in using a pan tab.
I see. So now the the behavior that we've seen with a lot of the pens and tablets, it really depends a lot about with the type of hardware you're using. There's some specific tablets which are I think the XP pen and the Wacom tablets that we've tested with. But if you're using something else, then do reach out to us, write to us at feedback@whiteboard.chat, and we can take a look at what your specific particular case could be.
There was a question about the favorited menu item, where you show that how you can make them favorite and they show up on the top.
Yes.
There was a question about it. Is it user specific or board specific? I mean, can it be saved for later?
Yes, if I recall correctly, it is user specific. So as a teacher, once you favorite them, then favorite a particular set of tools, it would stick, and whenever you come back to the whiteboard.chat and you're logged in as yourself, you should be able to see the same favorited tools.
And there was one question about how to write math equations. So if you can show
Okay.
the math editor tool,
Sure.
and then I can cover some other questions.
Okay. So let me just see if I've gone down here. Okay, yeah, we're pretty much right there. So we went up to show dice. So the next one is the math input tool. So by clicking on that, you can, let me do this first. Let me try and increase my font size so it becomes easier to read. And then I'll pick math again. Now, this is a way in which you can type in some interesting things. So for example, if you want to try numerator, denominator type of fractions, or if you want to even type in more complicated things. So let's say I can pick x squared plus y squared. So you can type in some nice looking polynomial equations. There's also things where you can do integration. So, yeah, and then so x equal to 0 to, so say 100, and then I can say x and things like that, right? So you can type in some pretty complicated math out here to get a whole picture of what all you can do with the math tool. What you can do is you can go to settings. So I think I'm on a student board. Let me go back to my instructor board. I'm on Stephanie's board. I could see her cursor there. Okay, so let me go back to the instructor board and to as for yeah. So additional help on how to type in complex math, you can click on the three dots menu. There's a help section here, and within the help section, there's quite a few things we've got here where you have links to various downloadable teachers guide, a student guide. Those are PDF documents, so you can you can print them out for your reference. But there's also a math input guide here, which brings you to a PDF document that tells you in detail how you can type in the various types of math equations in there. They're also editable, so it's not like once you type in, it sticks there. You can also go back and edit a particular math equation. So certainly that's doable as well. Anything else? The
Yes, there is one question about once you deleted a student's board, can they rejoin it using the class code or anything, and can they come back again to the class?
Yes. So if you, since the class code is going to remain the same for that particular whiteboard, yeah, they can rejoin it, but it would likely have them relog in again or type in a new name and so on. So if you have any case where someone is causing a lot of nuisance for you, you may have to just copy that particular board and save it, and then have the students join in separately as well. So one way to do that is you can go to manage book, and you can say save a copy. So when you do that, it creates an exact replica of the teacher's board, and then you can basically share that link with yeah, your students to rejoin as well. That's actually a very good point. We might think about changing the classroom code if that's needed.
There was a question on a group board. So if you can just quickly
Yes,
show a group board, then I will
definitely.
cover the other questions.
Sure. So let me do this. What I'm going to do is I will create. Okay, let's do this. So we already have a set of participants here. Let's just use this for the sake of time. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I clicked on the avatars up here, and it brings up this panel of participants for me. I can create a group board by clicking on this button. And now there are a few different ways you can create groups itself. You can pre-create the group. So let's say you're creating a classroom board, and you want to create three different groups, and then have the students pick a group when they join. You can create the group names here itself. So if I could do that, then they would be requested for a group name when they join. Alternately, what I can do is I can uh, specify that I want 5 students in every group. And so automatically I can just say 5 and say auto create groups. Or I can even take the current set of students. So let's say I pick Dawal, Chris, and Stephanie, and I add them here, and I add them to this group one, and we'll create a group. So now and let's say that I also I should add my student as well to the same group. So I can go out here, click edit, And let me join the same group as well, an update group. So now if I switch to my student board, this is, as you can see, the student has now joined group one. So now the other students, if they are on the same page, then this is group one. So as you can see, Stephanie is here. You can see Chris's cursor is here. And as a teacher, if I go to the grid view, I would be able to see that the Dhaval is on group board one, Chris is on group board one, and so is Stephanie, right? And so that's one way in which students can interact as a group. Another thing that the teacher can do is, if the teacher wants to join the group, he or she can do that as well. So the teacher again clicks on the participants panel, and then goes to the create this is sorry, I didn't scroll down enough. So this is group one, and if you click on this eye icon, then the teacher also has joined the student group, right? Now the common question we do get asked here is that if I want to know on a group board who is adding what content, right? So let's say as a teacher, I can go to the select option, and if I select this, I can see that the last update of this object was done by student. Okay, so for example, say Stephanie or Chris, if you guys write something on or type in something out here, then I may be able to click on that and see that, okay, you have added that content, right? So even as a student, so if I, let's say this is this is my student example, right? So let's say I go and add something to this. Let's say I add this multiplication mark here, right? And then as a teacher, I can go and select this, and I can see that the last student who updated this was student, right?
Uh, there was a
And this was
question
added by Stephanie. Yes.
about group board. Can students switch between their own board and the group board that they are being part of?
Yeah, really good question. So this is my student board, and I can click on the participants panel, and it gives me the option, say, go to my board. So now the student is able to go back to his or her own board, work on that board if needed. I can click on this and then go to the group board if needed. So they can switch back and forth. It's a good question. And do keep in mind that when students are working on the boards, they cannot erase other students' work. So certainly it's a much more collaborative environment, and it's not that they would cause a lot of fighting within the group itself because they'll be deleting stuff. Okay. So let me go back to the instructor board here. So I think that covers group boards in sufficient detail. Let me just look at the tools here. So we went over math. One really useful, fun tool for teacher is the pointer itself. So there are two types of pointers. You can either have a snake pointer so that you can grab some attention of students if the teacher wants. Um, there's also the ability to have a spotlight, so you can highlight things like this and then get some of their attention there. Then we also looked at text boxes already. The text box has some additional interesting features. I will cover them in a second. Let me just quickly go down this list first. There's also the ability to write some software programs. We do cover that in the advanced webinar. So you can either look at some recorded videos of the advanced webinar, or we will soon be having an advanced webinar and you can join that as well. You have the ability to add via post-it notes. So for example, I want to add some blue notes. You can also use the infinite cloner for things like this, where you can create copies of these notes, right? So that's another option you have. Then you have student signals, where you can create like a stoplight. So the students can use this as a way to signal that, hey, you're going too slow, you're going too fast, and that's another useful tool for them to have here. For some reason, my board is a little bit stuck here. Let me reload this. So this refresh board button is actually quite useful for this same reason, where just something gets stuck. You just ask the students to either refresh their browser or refresh their board here, and that should work for them. So yeah, so you can students can click on these the student signals to indicate what if there's any help that they need. And of course, if you go to the grid view, then you should be able to see the student signals also update in real time as students change them.
There was a question about, is there a way to sync the Zoom breakout or Google Meet's breakout room? I don't know if Google Meet has they do. And it with the group boards that we have at Whiteboard.
Not at this time. We're working with Google as well as Microsoft on some of the collaboration and integration with their tools. So, hopefully in the future we can provide that feature as well. Okay. So let's look at a few other options as well. Let me try and maybe go to a cleaner board. I'm going to switch to page number 5. And now you have the ability to add different types of calculators. So there's a basic calculator that you can add. There's also um, a graphing calculator that you can add. And this can do some complex graphing as well for you. So for example, you can do some x squared and things like that. Students can add their own graphing calculator in there, maybe take a screenshot of this and then paste it as part of their assignment as well. Right, so that's something that they can do. There's also the option of there's a bunch of other things in terms of a factory. So factories, let me show you one type of factory. So this is like a tile factory that, so as a teacher, if I want to create different tiles that the students can move around. So you can type in, there's few different ways you can do this. So let's say I want to create tiles which are just letter tiles, and I want them to be able to move them. So I hit create, and this automatically create tiles for you. So this is a very basic type of tile. You can create even more colorful things here. So there's some good helpful text up here. So for example, I just wanted this one to be for different color. I can do that, and then that way, I can get tiles here. You can type in longer pieces of text here also. So I can do something like this, and so on. So you can get a lot more um, variety in here. You can also use this to make cards. So for example, if I, instead of making tiles, if I wanted to make cards, then I can get these cards as well. And then students can flip, or a teacher can flip these cards as well, right? So you can also make matching cards, for example. So let's say I want to make a okay, so the matching card format is you type in the text and then the matching card text as well. And this is separated by semicolons. So I'm going to do that. Create that. So now when you do this, it basically creates a pair of cards. So if I select A and I pick, let's say, B, that's not a matching card. So that doesn't do anything. But let's say if I pick Apple and, oops, I'm not in the right mode maybe. I need to go to select mode. Maybe I need to refresh my board for a second. Okay, and then I pick Apple. So if you selected the matching cards, they would disappear, right? So if I select B and boy, they would disappear. So you could do things like that. There's also the option of, so there's factories similarly for creating forms and tables. So we didn't get a chance to cover much about that, but certainly there's something that you can look up into our help areas. There's also the musical instruments that you can add. So for example, you go to, you can add piano, and this is, so of course I'm wearing headphones so you won't be able to hear it, but you can add that as a teacher or a student and hear that. We also have a xylophone, just like a piano as well. And I already demonstrated that you have shapes that you can add. So you can have circle, compass, polygon. So you can also have like a seven-sided septagon here. So you can add that. So bunch of tools that you're welcome to explore. There's a few other really interesting things like drop zone and breakdown and handwriting tools. So this is actually pretty complex stuff here. So for example, if I want to write in English, right, and I can have it recognize my handwriting, right? So it already recognizes, and when I type it in, it writes it in here. And you can pick a huge number of languages that you can write in. So if you really want to teach students to actual written script as well, you can select our languages and have it recognize and write.
There was a basic question about a shape or figure. If it is drawn, can it be distorted? I suppose we have a rotate one,
Yes,
and you
so,
can change. Yes.
certainly you can rotate this. For example, I added this image here. You can move these. So you can select the move and resize tool to, of course, not only move and resize, but if you select this, you can use this particular control to rotate. You can resize them. We haven't added the mechanism to specifically pull it only in one direction if you'd like that. But if that's something that's useful for you, we can certainly look into added that. Okay.
Earlier, there was one question. Since we have already reached the end of it, I'm just going to ask that question, that you showed that we had a direct link pasting mechanism for Google Classroom and for Microsoft Teams. There were requests for Moodle and Canvas and others. So they were
Okay.
asking if there is a plan to add that as well or not.
Yes, so certainly, we have a huge backlog of things that we would like to add, and if you'd like to, change the priority for us, certainly write to us, and then the more number of teachers who request for a particular feature, the we prioritize that. So if Moodle and Canvas is going to help you, then certainly write to us, and we'll look into that.
So now is a good time for you to show the manage board, because there is a question about switching from one board to another board.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, before I switch the context into handling multiple boards, there's one very important area that I do want to cover, which is the manipulative section. So if you click on this palette icon here, this brings up two panels for you. One is of course the color picker, so which is pretty easy to understand. But the other one is this panel which allows you to pick up a huge variety of manipulatives. So if you open this up and select this drop down here, as you can see, there's a bunch of things that are available to you as a teacher. And so let's take a look at a few of those. So you have some math options, right? So you have all these various stickers that you can add. There's music. So you can add actual sheet music related stickers. And the way you would use music is that we have the ability to add background grids. So there are some built-in grids, like, so let's say if I want to add a music sheet, right? So now I can add like a bass clef here, I can add treble clef, and then I can add notes, and I can also make these movable, for example, or even clonable by students, so that they can actually move them around and write music, read music if they want. There's also things like letters. So there's a huge variety of letters that you can use. You can use background sheets like handwriting grids, for example, and then have them use things like dotted. So you can have them paste here and then have them write on it to practice some handwriting. There's also the options in terms of alphabet and vowels and pronunciation, manipulatives, the phonograms. There's math manipulatives from like place value discs, number icons. There's like a 10 block, a 100 block. There's other options like rulers. There's there's a ton of stuff here for you to explore, and of course number lines and things like that. So math manipulatives is one of the first few things that were requested by many teachers. So we added that. There's 3D shapes, and this is one area where we can add new things really quickly. So the reward stickers we already mentioned. There's also currencies.
In the manipulative, can you show the
Yeah,
protractor? Because there is a
sure.
question if there is a way to measure the angles, and we have ruler as well for,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. So I can go back to math, and so either, oh, sorry, it should be in the manipulative section. So there's a protractor right here. Now, of course, since there's a huge variety, I highly recommend you also try and use search. So if you use protractor here, then there would have been easier for you to find it as well. And the really cool thing about the protractor is that you can rotate it. And
Sorry,
so,
so the
sorry.
question was different. It wasn't about, so they said the platform has the ability to measure the angle on its own, or between the 2 points, the distance on its own? I suppose no.
No, not at this time. So certainly you can add things like coordinate planes and coordinate grids. So for example, there's a way to add, say I want to add 25 and I want to use some medium spacing and I want to add only the positive quadrant. So you can add a grid here and then your students can start to plot items here and then do kind of measurements right there as well. So it can be done to scale if you're interested in doing that.
There are repeat requests for two things.
Yes.
One is if you can show how to make the matching cards, and another one is how you can show. You have earlier shown drawing an object and filling it with a color. So
Mhm.
if you can demonstrate these two things one more time.
Sure. Okay, let me do that. All right. So to go over the
Matching cards first.
matching
Let's go there.
cards,
Yeah.
let's go to factories. So I picked tools. So as you might recall that I'd favorited my tools option. So that's why I have it up here, but you may find it lower down there. But you go to tools and in factories, and within the tile factory, we have the option of the matching cards, right? So you can, so we recently added some styling here where these type of panels are basically draggable, so you can use that. And so now to make matching cards, you can select the make matching cards option, right? And then the matching card format is that you type in the text of the first side and then the matching card on the text of the matching card separated by a semicolon, right? So let's say I can use the same sort of example, A for, let's say, airplane, that, let's say, and then you create these cards. So as soon as you hit create, you get to see these various matching cards. And as a student, so let's say if I join page number 11, I can go to page number 11 here. Now as a student, I can pick the banana card. Actually, I probably didn't pick the students
Student can
can.
move. Yeah, you
Yeah,
should.
so maybe I should have picked that. Okay, so let me do that. So go to factories, tile factory, pick match cards, and I also want to say students can move. So you got to select both of these options. And let me do this on page number 12 so it's no confusion there. I added them. And there's a student, go to page number 12. And now the student can pick these various cards. So these are not matching, so it's not going to do anything. But if I pick the matching card, then they disappear, right? So that's one feature. And then the other feature that we wanted to look at was the fill feature, right? So
Yes.
go to tools, shapes. Let's pick a rectangle as a different object here. So I drew a rectangle. Now I can select. So if I select on this, I click on the outline of the rectangle, I get to select options. There are many options here as well. And so what we are interested in doing is pick the fill color. So now you can pick, either you can pick a smoothly variable color, whichever one you want, or you can pick from one of the selected colors from the palette itself. And then you can, now actually it's a little bit tricky to read. Let me drag this out here. Yeah, so this has the option of a fill. You can pick the fill color, or you can also pick the stroke color. So you can pick the color of the outline as well. So I picked green, and that would change the color of the outline too. So and then you can apply it to all the shapes that are there in that menu. Okay.
There is a question on poll, and I suppose since you are talking about poll, maybe we can also show them the new poll, which is the form factory.
Certainly, let's do that. So the poll is available out here in the three dots menu. So you click here, and there's an option called New Poll. Now this panel we were working on styling this a little bit better. So sorry about it. That's a little bit hard to read, but it gives you some help up here. So let's say that the simple poll example that is given here is that you can specify a question and then what the options of the poll are. You can also specify which students you want to send a poll to. So you can click on toggle all to select all of them if you want. And so let's say that I want to send a poll, And then I had prepared something earlier, which is what is your favorite character, Elmo or Cookie Monster, right? And then I can send this poll. Now, if I switch over to the student view, so this is the teacher's view. The teacher can see that there's a poll that is out there, and it has been sent to all these students. And now, as the students pick, now see Chris has picked Cookie Monster, so I can see the result here. I can, let's say this student picks Elmo, and then I can see the student has picked Elmo and Stephanie picked the monster as well. So that's one way to do poll. And now the teacher can also click on clear all to just get rid of this panel if the teacher wants. Now the other option that Dhaval was talking about was it's a lot more customizable. So if you go to tools again and then go to factories, there's a form factory. Now, Form Factory essentially helps you create like a form and then get even some analytics about the results of the form itself. So let's say there are a few different options here. So there's either you can add labels or you can create text boxes, you can create radio boxes and check boxes. So let's say I add a label. So, uh, and my form is about, let's say, lunchtime. What did you have for lunch? Oops. Yeah. Right. And I say, I give them a few different check boxes. So it says check boxes with a C and semicolon. So let's say chicken, rice, and then you can also have some free-form text. So for example, so I say, this would just be a type in answer. Right. So this creates a form for your students. So you can move this around if you like. Now, as a student, let me join that. It's page number 13. Start out here. See, I'm on a group board for the students. So let me switch back to my regular board. Right. And so the student now can select, okay, that the student had chicken and a drink. And then, there should be a text box here. I may have mistyped something there. But anyway, so let's say the student picks these answers and then submits their response to it. When the student selects submit, the color changes as you noticed here. And then the teacher can click on the, I'm losing my place here. Yeah. So the teacher can click on the results button to get an assessment of what the students had picked. So this particular, now by default, the names of the students are hidden just for privacy reason, but you can see that the response from the students, and you can also see how many students picked which option and so on, right? And you can also show the student names if you really like. So the student one picked this, and if there were other students who had picked them, then they would show up here and you get some assessment of what the choices were. Yes.
All right. I think we have covered all the questions. If I have missed out any, and if one of the teacher want to just ask any question by unmuting themselves, we are okay with that. Or you can please type your questions here. But we are already like 15 minutes above the stipulated time, so maybe we can wrap up. I don't know.
Yeah. So let me just stop my recording. So